Hello everyone, today I want to talk about a very serious topic called player vitals. I'm Nacho, I've been solo developing Tiny Drift for the past couple months and here sharing a little bit of my experience over game design, game development and game art concepts and struggles I have as a solo developer. Alright, what do I mean about player vitals? Everything related to how we communicate to a player, what's the current state of the character controller that you have, how much health you have and how healthy it is. Game design is really funny. As this person that worked in product for 15 years of my life, I have quite a big struggle to understand how game has very little patterns and standards across the board. To start with, when it comes to player vitals or player health, player mana, depending on the concept of the game we're talking about, you have from the get-go a little bit different ways to visualize information, right? You have capsules, you have counters, you have gauges, you have like different UI style, diegetic or not, retro, 2D, 3D. There's a plethora of different ways of doing this. And apart the different styles, you also have every other piece of information that you have to use or you can use to communicate to the player that it has a certain state of health or resources to use. We're talking about sound, visual effects, out of screen cues, everything else that is not only the user interface. With all of that in mind, I went on a big mission to try to figure out what I want to do for Tiny Drift. Spoiler alert, I don't have the answer yet. And here I'm trying to share what I believe is a good player vital setup. So each game has different ways of communicating player vitals. So if you have an action game, if you have a cozy game, or if you have a strategy game, you'll see that those three types or even further types, they will have completely different ways of doing it. Action or arcade type of games, they usually have like health bars or health capsules to communicate, how much do you have, how much do you have as a player, how much is it left. And also they would use different kind of visual cues like fading the color like a little bit red out the screen to communicate that the player took some damage and there's less health now. In strategy or turn-based games, everything is lower and the pace is way more controlled, so there's less need to communicate to the player that there is damage or recovery happening. And then you have games like cozy games or incremental games that the concept of health, it's maybe not even existent, right? And there is no way to lose the game by losing health, so you don't need to communicate, and then the conditions and the problems that you have as a game designer is completely different. Okay, I want to focus a little bit more on action games, which is the genre for Tiny Drift. And we're gonna go a little bit specifically more on survivor-like styles, roguelikes, roguelites, and everything related to the genre. So for action games, and everything I use as a reference for Tiny Drift, it's already really complex. Because all those games, they have different placements, different art style, different visual feedback for the player. And I'm trying to study what does it work the best, while also keeping the soul of Tiny Drift alive and trying to incorporate some original concepts as well, right? It's really hard to get this done, and as a first-time game developer, I find it bringing user interface knowledge from product super hard to games, almost impossible to reutilize something. The biggest challenge I see is how to place the proper information and which amount of information to show to the player. If we talk about games like Vampire Survivors or Brotato, you will see that the health bar is super close to the player, almost like on top, on bottom, or very close to where the player's focus needs to be. And that's something I truly believe it works, especially when it comes to Tiny Drift. I need the player to always have focus in the middle. Therefore, I cannot have like health bars in the corners or the top left or the top right, because the player will never look that way. All right, we talk about placement. So what about resource? Different type of games and different type of game designs, they have a choice between a limited amount of lives that a player has, or let's say mana, or every type of resource that you have to use. And other type of games, they choose to use this number representation, right? You have like 100 out of 100 hit points or health points, or you have 100 out of 100 resource points or mana. When it comes to game design, it's not really clear to me what to choose or when to choose to use numbers or limited resources like hearts or specific capsules like count. What I mean with that is I don't have a specific answer or a specific plan to say, okay, from now on, I'm gonna use limited amount of hearts for the player, or I'm gonna use 100 out of 100, right? And I believe that the judgment here, it's usually based on how the game design is, more or less. Tiny Drift is not super original per se. We are following the survivor-like formula of having enemies and having this shoot them up style. It sounds to me like, and the side that I'm leaning more towards is having limited amount of lives displayed. So let's say 3 hearts or 4 hearts, and something can be upgraded over time. Now the last part of all of this for me is the art style. What to do. Keep it flat, make it stylized, create something in the middle. That's really complex, and there are so many ways to solve this apparently. At the moment, I don't have a clear answer, and because I don't want to creep too much on this topic, I approach this from the let's make it flat for now and then make it better later. Otherwise, I'll never get the demo out for people to test. And I have to say, this is the hardest decision I had to take in the last weeks for sure. This is for me like a very strong lesson on how I should have taken these decisions a long time ago before I touched the code, because that would have made my life so much easier now. And maybe having those things done by paper way ahead of time before prototyping something on Godot, I would have answered these questions way easier and way faster, right? And maybe this video would never exist, but I would never know. So if there's something I want you to take away from this video, is that player vitals is super hard. It's probably for me the hardest topic when it comes to user experience and user interface when making Tiny Drift. Now I'm curious from you if you have experience of user interface, if you have preferences, if there's something that actually sparked interest in what I said, let me know in the comments, and I'll see you all in the next video.